Jai Hind to all. Myself Shikha Agarwal, Assistant Professor in Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. So, students, today we are going to discuss one more topic of cloud computing. Particularly, this lecture is being dedicated to the students of CS and IT so that they can understand the concepts of cloud computing. So, in this lecture today, we are going to discuss about SOA and REST, which you can say is the part of the second unit, right? So, in this lecture, before we start with SOA, we should think what all the points we need to cover about it. First of all, we are going to discuss about what is an SOA. Then after that, we are going to discuss about what are its benefits. And after that, what is REST and how it works. Basically, these are the two architectures which is being used in a concept of cloud computing so that we can make the things easy, right? How these architecture works, how all the services is being provided between the two end users. So first of all, we are going to discuss about SOA. When I'm using the word SOA, its full form is service oriented architecture. Basically, this particular term says that whenever we are talking about a concept of architecture, this particular architecture is used to provide the services to their users. Basically, you can see the proper definition also, that service oriented architecture is a style of software designing where the services are being provided to the other components in the form of application components through the communication protocol over a network. As we all are aware, when I'm talking about the network layered architecture, it also having a concept of layers. So we can say when I'm talking about the SOA, in this each and every services is being provided to the other components or by the application components, right? Basically here we have to create a one communication protocol over the complete network so that we can provide or we can satisfy the services to their clients. Basically, when I'm talking about the service oriented architecture, because it is a one type of a software design protocol or a communication protocol due to which its principle says that it is an independent of the vendors and other technologies. There is no third party concept over here. Whatever the communication is being done, it is to be done directly. No other technology is being involved in the concept of service oriented architecture. When I'm talking about the service oriented architecture, there are a number of services being communicated with each other, right? Just say, for example, if I'm talking about the message passing, data passing, and to do the coordination among the two activities and so on. So we can say whenever I'm talking about the SOA, in this case, we can provide the n number of services so that the two end users, they can communicate with each other in both the directions, right? Basically, when we talk about the service communication, we are providing the two ways. We are providing in the two ways, either by through the passing a data or through two or more services is being coordinating with an activity so that we can provide the n number of services. For example, suppose if I'm talking about a two student client and a server. So into that case, either the client can give a message passing data, right, to transmit that request, and similarly the response can be generated from the client side too. Okay. So in this way they can do the requesting and the exchanging of the data simultaneously. Whenever we are doing the certain activities, into that case we can two or more services coordinating into an activity. So this is just a one definition of SOA. Second thing, when I'm talking about the SOA, basically it makes a software components reusable. When I'm using the word reusable, it means with the help of common communication protocol, each and every time the software components can be again and again can be used. When I'm talking about the term communication standards, in the word communication standards, basically we are talking about the three terms, the basic protocols, syntax and semantics, and rest is an hardware or a software implementation or an architecture. When I'm using the word protocols, basically protocol is that term which is also known as a set of rules. right? Whenever the two parties came into the communication way, when they are connecting with each other, they have to follow the certain protocols, the set of rules, so that they can follow every time whenever they are exchanging the services with each other. When I'm talking about the syntax, it gives the method of exchanging the data, and semantics, how that particular command works, what is the meaning of that command. Similarly, here we are also going to talk about the standards in a form of hardware as well as in a software architecture. Basically, when I'm talking about making a software components reusable, this is being reusable in such a way that they can be rapidly incorporated into the new applications without any deep integration, whether that particular is a data application, APIs, or a devices that comes across like an IT department and IT organization and so on. So basically, they are using the various resources, right? Then after that, when we are talking about the SOA services, each of the SOA services embodies the code and the data integration required to execute the complete business functions, right? Because everything is to be dependent on writing a code. When you are giving a complete explanation about that code, you simply execute that function and you can directly getting the calculations onto that basic data. So, for example, we can do the checking of customers' credit, right? When I'm talking about of checking the customer's credit, first of all, we need to check how the customer's credit is being working, how we need to calculate their monthly salaries. So again and again making a calculations, it is a very time consuming process, right? Every month we need to calculate the monthly loan payments and so on. So it would be very difficult to calculate each and every time. So into that case, we are doing the coding, and that particular coding, whenever it is being integrated, and they simply require to execute so that we can complete the given task, right? When I'm talking about the SOA, remember one thing, it provides a loosely coupling. The next property, that it provides a loosely coupling. When I'm using the word loosely coupling, into that case, either it is having a little or no knowledge how the integration is being implemented. We are least concerned about implementation. We are not aware about, we need not to keep the knowledge of how the integration platform is being generated, because we are more focusing on to the service interfaces, how the services is being provided. We are more focusing on to the applications, right? But least concerned about how the coding is being done. So that is why we can say SOA is a loosely coupling interface. Similarly, when I'm talking about an SOA, there are the certain protocols which we already used, like you can say talk about HTTP, SOAP, like simple object access protocol. These all are the basic protocols which is being used to send a request to read or to change into the data, right? And similarly, we are having a one more protocol, that is SOA. When I'm talking about the SOA, so it is being arrived in the late 1990s. When I'm talking about the certain benefits of using the SOA, as we all are aware about that, this is an loosely coupled, it is a reusable interface. We are least concerned about how the service interface is being implemented and so on. So basically, we are more focusing on to the certain rules and regulations, and each and every activity is being coordinating with each other, and we are getting the more and more services, due to which there are the large number of benefits when we are talking about the SOA. The first is greater business agility. Whenever we want to increase our business, we can simply increase the number of services. In spite of considering how the platform is being integrated, we are taking the business agility. The second is, we are talking about the ability to leverage legacy functionality. That if we are working a functionality in one platform, and how we need to extend the platform to the next platform. Suppose we are using a Windows, then how we need to move into a Linux, Ubuntu, and so on. So how the functionality is being done when we are lock the functionality on one platform, and now we need to extend that platform into the another platform. Second thing is, when we are talking about the business and IT industries, into that case, it provides the SOA architecture or the service models, due to which the collaboration is being improved. By using the collaboration improves, it gives a benefits how the business is being executed. Somewhere it provides the improved collaboration, because everything is to be included into the services. Whatever the protocols we need to follow with each other, we can exist the data into the similar way. So that is why with the help of the SOA, it provides or improves the collaboration between the business and the IT industries. As we know, when I'm talking about the certain examples of SOA, there are the various industries or the various organizations, those who are following the SOA, right? How the SOA being integrated into their systems, how they are using their services and so on. So first of all, when I'm talking about the first example, in 2010, SOA implementations were gained extremely in the following organizations. It starts, they are working into the 2010, and how the particular organizations gaining the profit of implementing the SOA into their own environment. First of all, we are going to talk about the Delaware Electric. This is the name of the organization who turned an SOA to integrate the systems that previously do not talk to each other, right? Second thing, after that, the Delaware Electric, the Cisco is an organization who have adopted the concept of SOA to make sure that its products are ordering experience. It was very consistent across all the products and the channels by exposing the ordering processes in a form of services, so that the Cisco business and the partners, they can incorporate into their websites. Like Cisco is taking a benefit of using that SOA products, so that they, whenever they are exposing their orders, so that they can provide the better services to their users. Now after that, basically when I'm talking about the SOA architecture, there are the various benefits, there are the various characteristics which plays in a very important role when I'm talking about the SOA architecture. Yes, when I'm using the SOA architecture, when it is not being indulging any other vendors or any other knowledge and so on, so due to which it is having a various characteristics in the case of SOA. When I'm talking about the characteristics of SOA, while we are defining the concept of SOA, it varies from the company to company. Like they are providing their own interface services and other companies providing their own interface services. So each and every organization, they are providing their own interfaces. So similarly, due to which it varies from the company to company. Basically, when I'm talking about its characteristics, there are the 6 key tenets that overarch in the broad concept about the SOA. These are the common 6 terms which is being used in the SOA. Their core values include, just for example, first of all, they include for their own business values, right? Because they want to create their own business reputations and into the market, so that they can exist into the create value. So that is why first of all they are talking about their business values. The second is they are having their own strategic goal, intrinsic interoperability. Because when they are working with the one platform and then switch to the next platform within their own environment or within the outside environment, so they can easily generate their own goals, right? So they can do the strategic planning, so that how they need to operate from the one system to the another system. Second is they are sharing the services. When we are talking about the company to company, they are also sharing their services. Maybe we are taking the service on the rental basis from each other, so that we can share the data too, right? So similarly, we are talking about the sharing of services. And when I'm using the word flexibility, in the case of a flexibility, we can say whenever I'm taking the services from one another, so we are very much flexible in the case of operating systems, in the case of, you can say, in a platforms, and how we are dealing with the clients and so on. So we are very much flexible for providing the various services. Then after that, if I'm talking about evolutionary refinement, each of these core values can be seen as a continuum from the older format distributed computing to the service-oriented architecture. Basically, if I'm talking about these 4 values, so all these 4 values is being plays a very important role. Either we are talking about the old format of how the distributed computing network works, how the clustering system works, how the grid computing works. So these are the 4 basic goals which it is being very necessary when we are talking about the formats of architectures. So similarly, as in the case of distributed computing or grid computing and so on, Similarly, in the case of SOA also, it follows these 4 core values, right? Now, after that, something that is being often to be offset to the service-oriented architecture. Now, when I'm talking about the service-oriented architecture, there are the 3 major roles of the service architecture building blocks. Then after that, there are the 2 certain things which is being required in the case of SOA. First of all, when I'm talking about the 3 roles, the first is the one who is being called as a service provider, the one who is providing the services. The second, we are talking about the broker, the one who is being providing existing between the provider and the requester, or provider and the consumer, is a service broker. And the third is a service requester, or you can say a service consumer. When we are talking about the role of these 3 members of that particular SOA in the architecture, so there are the 2 more things is being required. The first is service registry, right? Before we go to the service, we need to register yourself. And similarly, all the services are being stored into their repositories. So first of all, we are going to discuss about who is the service provider. As we are, there is a word clear from this particular word, the service provider. Basically, the one who provides you the services, right? So basically, the service provider works in the conjunction with the service registry, debating that why and how the service is being offered. Because suppose if I'm talking about a service provider and service consumer or request, right? When it requests for the particular service, right? Into that case, first of all, the provider provides the service registry. That includes all the types of services, how terms and conditions, protocols, you can say, syntax and their semantics and so on, right? How we are going to offer all these services, what are its charges, and what is the availability of that data, what is the security of that data, how you need to maintain the privacy of data and so on. It means, if in a brief we can say a service registry is a document which gives terms and conditions, how we need to use that particular system. So we can say the service provider works in a conjunction with the service registry, debating the whys and how the service is being offered, such as how we are providing the services in a form of security, availability, what are the charges and more and so on. This role also determines the service category and if we need to be in any trading agreements, how we need to sign that particular agreement. As we all know, whenever we are taking the services from the others, into that case, first of all, we came into a mutual consideration, which is called as a SLAs, or you can say service level agreements. We need to sign that particular documentation. The second is a service broker. When I'm talking about the service broker, it makes the informations regarding the services available to all those who are requesting to it, right? Basically, the scope of the broker is to determine whosoever is implementing onto it. Like if the consumers require is, there is a middle layer works into that case. This is called as a service broker who is always keeps the information of all the services, that all these services are presently available or not, right? And whenever the requester requests for the particular services, it tries to fulfill those services and so on. The last one is a service requester. When I'm talking about the service requester, it locates all the entries in the broker registry and then binds them to the service provider. Like if the service provider is providing the n number of list, and out of all those n lists, only the service requester requests for the only 5 to 7 services. So first of all, they will combine all the services into the one system. They generate a one broker registry, and similarly, it will send it to the service provider that all these services I require it. Rest of the services being not to be made. And into that case, they may or may not be able to access multiple services at a particular amount of time. Basically, that all depends upon the capability of the service requester. In the simple terms, if we say कि जितना उसको request करना है उतना they will task for it. So we can say we will fulfill all the services. Either it requires a single service or a multiple services. Whatever the terms and conditions will always provide the service request. right? So this, then after that, we can also discuss the two more points, the service registry. As I've already told you, the service registry talk about the terms and conditions about all the things between the service provider and the consumer. When I'm talking about the service repository, it consists, you can say, a list, in a form of a list, like that I will provide the n number of services. Again and again, when the new services is being added on, they can include into the system and so on. So it provides presently this services is being applicable or not, what type of a consumer we have, so that we can provide this type of a services and so on. So these are the other two terms. Fine. So by this we have covered the basic about the service oriented architecture. Now after that, here we are going to discuss about the REST. When I'm talking about the REST, basically the REST is the you can say representational state transfer, which is being also a software architectural style that defines the set of constraints how we have to use for creating the web services, how all the web services that conform the REST architecture style, how they are being using. So into this case, we are going to talk about the RESTful web services. RESTful are those web services that conform the REST architectural style, are called as an RESTful web services, that provides the interoperability between the computer system onto the internet, how that we can operate from the one system to the another. RESTful web services that allows the requesting systems, and we can easily, like, we can access the data, we can manipulate the textual representations, how we can talk about all the web services that is being exposed their own arbitrary set of operations, how we can fulfill all those operations. When we talk about the HTTP is being used, there are common very methods, like we are talking about the various commands like trace, delete, connect, options and so on. Now after that, if I'm talking about the RESTful, basically its main aim is for fast performance, reliability and the ability, how the reusable components that can be managed and update without affecting the whole system. Web resources were the first, which is on the World Wide Web is being used, so that we can identify by their URLs. It is very difficult to learn the IPs. So that is why we are providing the URLs, so that we can easily handle, or we can easily identify the action or the entities that can be addressed into the web. In the RESTful web services, all the requests are made to the resources URI, so that we can respond onto the payload format in a form of either an HTML or XML format and so on. When I'm talking about the formal REST constraints, the client server architecture, as we all are very much aware about the client server architecture, that basically into this architecture there are the separate interfaces for the users in which they are storing their own data storage. They can improve the portability, how the multiple platforms can across come, how the scalability is to be maintained and so on. Now after that, we have already talked about stateful. Now let's talk about the stateless. The client server communication is basically constrained by no client's context, that is being stored on the server between requests. Whatever the request is being converted, then necessary request services to be provided to the REST. The session is to be held on to it and it is being deleted from the data. Generally, they need to maintain the session state that can be transferred by the server to the another service, such a database, like they need to maintain the persistent state for a period, or that allow the authentication and so on. So into that case, the client begins sending request when it is ready to make a transition from a one to a new state, while the other requests are outstanding, because into that case, the client is considered to be in a transition. The next is the cache availability. When I'm talking about the cache ability, as on the World Wide Web, clients and the intermediaries can cache responses. Response must like implicit or explicit type. They define themselves, either they are cacheable or a non-cacheable, so that we can prevent the clients from providing like stateful or stateless conditions. We manage the request and either we need to manage their caching, whether we need to go for a partially or completely eliminates from the client server interactions. It will further improving the scalability and their performance. The next, we are having a layered system. How the layer system works into the policies. Then after that we are having a code on demand. See, generally the servers can temporarily extend or customize the functionality of a client by transferring the executable codes. Just for example, if we are talking about the compilation or the code of Java applets or client side scripts such as JavaScript and so on, so we can easily code for the demand. When I'm talking about the user interface, the user interface constraint is fundamental to the design of any RESTful system. It simplifies and decouples the architecture, which enables the each party to involve independently. Fine. So these all are the talk about the system of REST and SOA. These all are the references from where you can study about the concept of SOA and REST. Thank you.